for the music and the introduction. Waminjika, Gabamalamangil, Balambonyanambu, Waranjeri Balak. Aniranamagagil Bill Nicholson. The language of this land, Woiwurrung. Welcome and greetings and good day from the Wurundjeri people. My name's Uncle Bill Nicholson. I stand here very proudly representing the traditional owners of the area that tonight's oration is held on. I would like to thank Melbourne University and all the hard workers behind tonight's event for allowing me to take a short period of your time to conduct a Welcome to Country speech. In our language, we call Welcome to Country Narrm, and it's a ceremonial process that allows people to feel culturally safe while you're here conducting your business. So that sign of respect is a real key to feeling truly welcome to the land, which I'll add to shortly. We are the sole surviving sovereign clan of the Birrarung. Sovereignty is an interesting word. I won't go into the political side of it, but from the cultural side of things, it's an inheritance handed down from my ancestors, people like Simon Wonga. If you've never heard of this man's name, I encourage you to learn his story, our first land rights advocate, and his predecessor, William Barak, who I know a lot more people have heard of, our first human rights advocate. Great inspirations, but their stories do test your emotions. I acknowledge my elders past for their strength, resilience and wisdom that allows us to be here today. Any elders that are also in the room, I acknowledge you and your leadership. I acknowledge your community as well. I'd like to extend that to the fallen clans that very locally in the Woiwurrung story. Unfortunately, many of the Woiwurrung family members or clan groups are no longer with us. I always like to acknowledge them in Welcome to Countries because sometimes if we forget to speak about things, they can easily be forgotten. All the men, women and children that lived and thrived on this land for thousands of years. Community leaders in the room today, Indigenous and non-Indigenous. From a cultural point of view, humility to me is a really powerful English word that relates to leadership, people who convey the voice of their community, even over their own wants and needs. Environmental leaders here today, the mob as we say down here, the community, Aboriginal community. We know what country needs, it's part of our cultural inheritance or sovereignty. I'd like to acknowledge other people who take action and either teach or take action in what caring for country is all about. The health of the land relates to the health of the people on that land, and it is our future. And also the many different cultures that now reside on Wurundjeri country, generally known as multicultural Melbourne or Narrm. I'd like to encourage everyone to share your stories, whether it's a spoken word, whether it's art, whether it's music, whatever it might be. The more stories that are told, the more listening occurs, and to me listening is the basis of mutual respect, or something we say in our language, Jinywarabak Balak, which is it builds unity within the community itself. Wurundjeri culture is a very knowledgeable culture, very sustainable, very inclusive, a strong part of our culture and very responsible. When I welcome people to this land, I like to share that responsibility to either visitors or people that live here to try your very best to care for this land and look after one another. Being here at Narrm University or Melbourne University, it's a place of higher learning and very well respected for that. I just like to use that illustration when it comes to the colonial invasion of this land and all over Australia. Let's try our very best to learn from those past mistakes. Australia was built on racial discrimination. It's not as, I guess, full on as it used to be back in 1901, but the residue is still there. A lot of Aboriginal people still feel it to this day. So let's try our very best to eradicate it once and for all, to create both an environmentally healthy space and also a socially healthy space now and moving forward for our future generations. The welcome ceremony, as I touched on, Narrm, it has many symbolism to it, but I'll just sort of talk about a couple of really important parts. We would allow you to utilise our resources while you're here. They're sacred to us. We would do a cleansing ceremony through the burning of the warang, of managum leaves, the spiritual cleansing of self, which is more balak, and more, which is spirit of the people, and more big, which is the spirit of the land, which is interconnected. and to feel truly welcome to the land, respect of it, the land, the culture of the land, and the people of the land is our law, which was never ceded, which means it's still it. And that's, like I said at the start, I feel that respect. So I'd like to say, on behalf of myself and community and my ancestors, Waminjika Wurundjeri Bik, welcome Wurundjeri country to you all. And I really hope you enjoy the oration, which I pretty much guarantee you will. So, Nun Gudgeon, thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Bill Nicholson, for welcoming us to Wurundjeri country. I would also like to pay my respect to traditional owners on whose lands the University of Melbourne campuses are located. The Wurundjeri Woiwurrung, the Bunurong, the Dja Wurrung and Yorta Yorta, and acknowledge this land was never ceded. I pay my deep respect to elders past, present and future, and acknowledge the importance of Indigenous knowledge in the Academy. Professor Yunupiŋu, Distinguished Professor Langton, Vice-Chancellor Professor Maskell, members of the Senior Executive, friends. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2024 Narrm Oration, the University's key address profiling leading Indigenous people from across the world. This oration is intended to enrich our ideas and respect to possible futures for Indigenous Australia. Narrm refers to the country of the Melbourne region, the land of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation. This word, Narrm, informs the university's commitment to place and the importance of our relationship with the traditional owners of the lands on which our campuses stand. This, the 16th Narrm Oration, will be delivered in Yolŋu Matha, and I ask everybody to reflect on the significance of this. Tonight will be the first time the Narrm Oration is delivered in one of the over 250 distinct languages that were spoken on this continent at the time of European colonisation. Today, all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander languages are threatened, and of the traditional languages still spoken, only 14 remain strong, although there is much work to reawaken languages that have not been spoken for some time. Tonight's oration will emphasise the importance of Indigenous peoples remaining strong in their language and in their cultural practices, which ultimately benefits all Australians. We come to the central purpose of this evening, the Narrm Oration, and it is my very great pleasure to welcome and introduce the 2024 Narrm Oration, Narrm Orator, Professor Yalmay Yunupiŋu. Professor Yunupiŋu is a much-loved and respected Yolŋu leader from northeast Arnhem Land. Before retiring in March 2023, Professor Yunupiŋu was a teacher, linguist at Yirrkala Bilingual School for over 4 decades. Known as the Bilingual Warrior, she was twice awarded a Teacher of Excellence by the Northern Territory Department of Education and made a lifetime member of the Teachers' Union. Professor Yunupiŋu remains passionate about the importance of education, and as chair of the Yirrkala School Council, board member of both the Rirra Aboriginal Corporation and Djalkari Foundation, she wants the next generation of leaders to remain strong in their Yolŋu language and culture. Professor Yunupiŋu has a long-established relationship with the University of Melbourne and was appointed as a professor in the Indigenous Studies unit, where she continues to work in partnership with the faculties of Medicine, Dentistry and Health Sciences and Education, and in the Indigenous Knowledge Institute. Djambatj Dhukarr underpins her way of working as she gently demonstrates this in her interactions with people. Professor Yunupiŋu is tireless in her commitment to her family, her community, and her work obligations. In recognition of her lifetime dedication to her community, Professor Yunupiŋu was named Senior Australian of the Year for 2024. She continues her family's legacy as she looks to how her award can help progress Indigenous rights. In her own words, "I just want to teach the world, the nation, about our language. It is very important. It talks about identity, who you are, where you come from. We want to keep our language strong and alive." Tonight, Professor Yunupiŋu's oration is introduced through a bungal. A bungal is a ceremony that Yolŋu clans have been performing for thousands of years. For the audience, a bungal invites people to witness Yolŋu's ceremony, the meeting place of dance, song, and ritual. A bungal often includes a yidaki player and bilma or clapsticks that provide a backdrop to direct the dancers. It is a practice taught to young people from a very early age and passed on through the generations. Performing a bungal is a way of keeping Yolŋu culture alive and sharing the importance of ceremony. Participating in the bungal tonight is songman Widiana Marika, who we've already heard from, Yidaki player Nalkan boy Manangur, and dancers Murki, Yanamba Stubbs, Yinye Puma, Din Baidingal, Jawandil Maymaru, Mundach Nau Manangar, Nuwafan, Sheena Thorn, Gunthorn through Min, Yunupiŋu, and the littlest member of the dancing group, Rakay Manangur, who is 3 years of age. Please warmly welcome them all to the stage. Thank you.
Tangumnyako Narrm Oration ma ngurumnan Djambatj Dhukarr ngale mirkia wong kana barstab tom kangaya Marika Yunupiŋu wong maltumanda buku wikam ngayaro ngay watangumin Orangery papurun ngalapalmin ngacil ngarungan kinang bala banatal partungurungi yalalangumi kapulung ngay angaro pokuwikam Melbourne University banatal wangananay kinako ngayang aro rakaram niya ako dawo margi niya raw tukka kinaw Narrm Oration nga rida chung umuro tarok muro ngay watangom Rome niya ka tuno pangoya nalpian nga Rome Warton ka ngayang mayam wanyukom tanaling way mariko na mi Rome mangaro margikom tanaling gumro tarok moro pokmak kamar kole birka mi ngay nga Rome nya ka barangayon now tanal dal mi margit nya rawo now Yolŋu Educator panatan nan nina yaka nan gerol iral kanga panay yuto ngaro magikom nan guay tarok ngayam dango duwa rida jingu Yolŋu ka ngayam nyako irkala tawar wayang inang maya 1956 to irkalam ngayi meli yako bana raping ga monok kapudoy miyaka rakaram dan labeng nganapling greening o lapor ngo mayawal chan tangum yako malanya rakaram yaka yul ngaya ngay nyako tarok mitti manikay kabonggol Yolŋu ka ngapigi wana margi nyako yako Yalmay wo ka koron ko Yalmay maya ko meli rangi kuri tuwa nga rangi nga ngayi nga kurun manan meli panatupal jangko walay nga kurun tuan wabitya yo walay to kurun tuan tupal harungan ya kuminggan ngayi namalanya rangi muro kapo muro tilci muro kakarwak tuwa mataman marikam nyako bapak mingo rida jungonan kawangam nan beng rida jungumuro nan kanan go wawak mingo wara kong dolang mi jalki dan zayan Yolŋu ngayu ngarakaw yako Cove land rights case Ticu mandal ngurungo land rights legislation kinal Australia jal kita yang dal kawangan wanyuyin ngayu jinako harakawo tangan noyak nan bay waktu anam wangan manoyak nan gong mayan nguna kapubudak tangum nya ko ngadip mingo pongo kawari punan nya ko mrechula nan nakula nam karechu manam yiri chanan kawara mirimiti kaya pak mingon nan gotopal Taul na tupal katarok tupalingo bayangon niya kawanga tinangumbala. Kuro tumin tupalingo yaramat miyo ngapakiyo bay matuan mariang do ngunal gan 1911 do. Bay matuan tanlin balayaw iwan ngarangan wikara kabatala bala duptuan ang tanlin bukmat na ngarangalin wangkan dung wara duptuan bala dicuan ang ngarangalin bala mayan bunur na tanlin scientific kun ka museum kun mitki miti malaungai na daul na malaungai mayulngo cinangumbala ini juga mayan nyaku babak mingun kapapurum nan dalwango tara trit nan ngadik mingun nyaku mayan nana panangaya 12 mo yana tunggara karay urumin nan pitan bilin nan bayang ngarunga biyali ninan ngaya tupalingol yana pilit supal tahulin 1934 yo mikinare ngarungan para tano yuan dang orang ngai yirkala akol danal ngoro yir yuan 1950s to ngana puya kan rom nyamar iwan danaling panatala ngarungan bala rom na ngana pilinggo takan guan kanyamar iwan ngaya ngaro buku wikam mitinaring panatal mahikuan ngana piling ngapa ku taroko mangana pungaro marma yo nokko yo daya kulam ngaya numaling aro dicuman tau ngaya numaling rakram aro nyakro panangaya ngarungan kole nalpen ngaya nangal ngakro kolma milap to maname ngaro dal kamar kulimbe tangang ngarungan kole warpam dal una bang kolma mitium pangom yana nolon boy ngoro yer iwanam mitinarium pala tul iwan church na kat ninjama work na kol gawat pilna banangaya tawatan kol ngorom balangaya pirka yuwanan na ngayang arujama. Jalmin ngaya marwat work tunda miwo. Tawo wokuriwo. Bilinya bikin poet ka library jama wo. Pengo ngaya birka yun dica o jama wo. Bili jalmi ngaya jura o nanara wo. Pican biling kurat mi banangan apa bayang kuli rama ngurungom ngana apa bayang wanga the Lord's Prayer jamar kuli wana bayang Richard mi wala YouTube bayang tawat teman warang uli baranan bayang daya wangan do wambalyo kawari pun bayang Richard Ray piri una darpayo bercumana pokmaknya ko education ma kinal bay ma girkalak bayang ngaya ngarungan bar kole jamam ngaya mayan library nga kinang ngaya work to nanan kuryuan jamawo balangaya ngaya ngunin tuanan ka jalminan jinakuwarko kul ngo ngajilinga mo yana library nga yana linggo ka yutta ligole ngana po kituan yaku yambir pa maya nam ngaya tuwe mingon nyako madawin na kanina nam ngali bala recuman ngali jamar kuling wangan yulo ka wangan baci nyara jamar kuling ngali guduruk nga kurar kuan ngali danaling gamil kuan talingo rom nguakuro ka dunupa ka jama ngaya berakyana tanalim ngarongan kurartin kanna ngalingin jamali kamangi inyarali balangali banang ngali dicaun mai mangin dicaun ngai mangin ngai kinal bema ngai nga ka yakum nan banak on site kamayan ngai jura tawi chan dica muru training muru torom ngaya bulu ngaya dica training tanguyam nan waripo yutta program ka yakum nan rate remote Aboriginal teacher education kurs manan bana mayanam ngaya bachelor institute murom dawin nga abulu ngaya tawar yuman tanguya kurs mangwa jen ngaya nyakuro achievement ko jama muru ngaya ngaronganam tunggarang upan kabulu ngaya studying mangaya ngaro dawar yuman tanlinggo ngapakiwo mangi nyarawi mala dicain ngaro yucolak muro Dhukarr muro ngaya nangal Yolŋu mangi nyaramiri ni na dala ngalapal miyo ngacil ngarungan kajinang bala jama ngacil iwan yutamiwo ngurun nanggal bamat boy yual ngurom Yolŋu wok niningo kabulu ngapaki wan ngayi maringin taroko ka romgo kangga mo ngaya na maringi taroko ngapaki o pukmak tunggarang upan ay kolim arongan Chinal bay mayir kalak nyaka ngaya arongan barkoli kole mangin ngaya marimi bana palaka bulo mangin ngaya ngaya ngaro qualified teacher Yalmay Yunupiŋu Bachelor Institute muro ngaya mangina dica o kinal pema ngaya mangin ngayinga community based teacher education pukmak dambo meriuk tunggara teacher education nguna Bachelor Institute nya ko mangi ko na me tukka unang upan ngalin ngupan ka tunggarang upan ngaya waktuanam jamar kuleo ngaya nyakan mil wikan ka kuterat mingo nyakuro madal ngaro turak tunana kakana tuka waryun ka mangi Kulma yirkalam 1960s to tangang kinjim rom nalpian ngarok jama mingkan ka baki gol Commonwealth control ngoro kabalak missionary wol kabolo Northern Territory government gol bilingual manandango bolo darpal yul wapto namro bilingual manandango kunga iwan Kaufit lemdo 1972 yo nga chilingoy nan prime minister bilin nan nangal pana bilingual education ma darpal Yolŋu jamar kulewo tanang maringi tanlingoy darok kolnga wa koro birka undam nan kong belek nan darok ma ngana pilingo wal ngayana original pala ngana pilinyakan paro-waro yuan kolkok tuan darok jamar kulewo muktun ngana puyana daya nirkala kolyo yako nirkala kolyum yako jama we can teach a linguist precision literature production center nandang darok ma darpal kadiyo bilingual man nandang nirkala kolngam ngori iwanam 1974 yo kajinal banangan apo yakan kinang balangan apo yakan muktun baki tinang ya baki ya jamar kulewo tarok dua ya tango tarok ngana po yaka maigi kuanam jamar kulinam curap nandangang kinalanga yaka yana dua yam curak malanya waripo buka waripo nan curak malanya papurok merong kinang bala Melbourne University yo bayang yaka volunteers talk digitizing tanal yaka jura kana kiri malanya na ngaru yaka maliki jura ka bariuman ka wudiun pilinan dango ngana pilingo intellectual copyrights Yolŋu Matha bang baki kamar hikom Yolŋu dita yoyana Yolŋu Matha bang marikom kurar mi kapaki ngalma bang staircase model Yolŋu Matha wo paki ngana bang dita wo resource ko waktu Yolŋu Matha wo Yolŋu dita yo bang jar yon jura na jamar kulo ngarok jamar kulo ngar magikom mar rolo daikun ko ka paki Yolŋu tarokom kawana plana ka ngapa ki bayang paki pedal ka column plana PJ yo nangal dicuan jamar kulo yuta maigi nyarawo kapulo ngalapal miyo kaitpo kawarwo bana ngacil yuan dal nangal bilidal karaman mi mulkor ngara mi kajiri kai mi ngayang aro buku wikam tanling bana dal wanyo kuan darok ngana pilinggo yaka ngaro bulo dulung yon darok ngana pilinggo jamam yaka ngaya ngaro jaka ka wanyo kum Yolŋu Matha darok tua ya morok jamar kulewo darok tangu yam darok jamar kulewo ngurongok ngaro mangi Yolŋu darok ma tangu ngana pilingo kanjarak korutok Yolŋu ngalma ngalangurong alma. Tuyun nan, pananan, taon na Yolŋu tarok. Nga na pong wari wakwak tunan. Tungan, wili unawari Rome. Yolŋu be nana jari una wangkain kum Rome nga na pelingko. Yakang alma beng barkwal kum. Kinanguyam nguriyir kol ngam yako karma mets kakalta. Kinanguyam nan tawatuan darpal meli Yolŋu wo. Nyakuro duwai mingong birka yunda tangum Dr. Yalmay Yunupiŋu bananan maltuman yuti in the band bokman karma festival na bang bukmak tu nama ngacil iwan nan nangal kamar kulewo tukka belajaman ngalapam liwol kira kuya katangun kamar kuli maringin yakan daroko kolnga kaltam meli pana Yolŋu beng tuptun kanna ngalabal nanaro karminya tarpum panemya ko meli rakram nguriyir yun na darok kun ngama-ngamayon daon kalta yung nga na po beng kaya minggan nalpian ngal mangarok marikum yuten jamar kulin irkalanga ngalapon mi beng kamurot ninatungkan ngayon ngarok nangal tao nguro nangal tao manikay ka warpam nan ngal malinggo Yolŋu Rome bonggol manikay ka wangar malanya karma mes mangarok kuruto morok ajakri morok karmam nan yako meli pana pukmak Yolŋu ngarok bukulong ton me likat-likan ngurok ngay ngurok kawangkan manapan me ngalapal me Yolŋu paing maltun me maltuna tica o kajamar kulewo kacama mingana karmam nan tawatuan kan manguro kan mamdango tapir kiak tarpal yaka kinawa oy yana banara pananan nyakuro duwai mingoyo yako ninatungkan ka tuyunan kapunan doyon miyaka nguna brain mari ka kutara meli nan rakam yaka kapuyo panangala ngalo wanggain manapan me kurutuyo karmam yako ninatungkan banara yana yaka bukmakko ngalapan mo perka yunda kakait po dal linggo pana Yolŋu jamar kulit ngarok nguro ngamaygi nganap linggo yana Rome ko kakal o ka nganap ngapangam balandaon nganap linggo jalkriyo ngarok unang arkumam Yolŋu maniko na ka kung kayon nga arok tukak Djambatj maltuman ka bilinya pican ganma kapok nan ngaro Yolŋu kang balanda Rome ka margi nyaram mi wangkain manapan ka paki rambangi kulam ngana piling ngaro taya wangkain tarok ka Rome Yolŋu ka ditya ok Kung kaya dami madalang arom Djambatj katangang bana ngalinyo mirkiayo angaya maltuman ya ko Djambatj Dhukarr. Djambatj Dhukarr dango Yolŋu Educator. Kung kaya dami Dhukarr manan ngaro Yolŋu Educator Djambatj Cinangom ngaro Dhukarr laptuman nalpien ngal mangaro jama Yolŋu wanawo ka balandayo rom bana tapir kuman jamar kulewo maringi kunarawon nguna kulnga Djambatj Dhukarr aro bukmaktok undang arkom korutumro wangan manapan ka rambangi margi ngaro Yolŋu ngaro rom ka tarok ngorele ngaltuman jamam ngaya 45 tunggarak ngunal yirkalakol ka banangaya balangaya kuliwanan ngaro nganam ngaya jamam rom ka punna margin ngarongan Dhukarr bana wenyo ka wikarak marma ngaya jama morom mayan jura Djambatj Dhukarr nyakongom Djambatj Dhukarr tangom bana ngalmayaka ngore yon yutamlen Djambatj wareng Pijan bilingal mga ngarok jama ka kung kayundam mi manan ngarom dango Dhukarr Yolŋu ngalaplingo tarok ka maigi nyarawo daya yana rom ngaro daya yaka jamar kulo buko pukmak dalang ngaro maigi tan linggo tarok morom tinako taroko niningo nyakum Dhukarr banangaya ngaro Djambatj parakyana jamam nyaku yarkon yutawon Yolŋu Educator nan ngaro mayam Dhukarr Djambatj Puku wikam ngaya ngaro Yolŋu ka palandain pananuman nana kung kayuan ka bulun nanan margikuan jama muru kali murok Yolŋu ka palanda kalki ka parko nina ya ka markapuwana numa kung kayon dami mentors ka lecturers ka bulo wariputanal kinal katura tangang dango marimi puku wikanam kum tango ngaya daya yaka katura nana kulan ngadiyok pirkudak malawungay kururiya yamba manaja dalma kamalo mataman mereka kunitpir Gunawanga, may merako mutamiri. Thank you, I think. I think
Professor Yunupiŋu, Gutha, Vice-Chancellor, distinguished university leaders and guests, ladies and gentlemen, elders, colleagues, friends. It is my privilege and honour to give on behalf of us all heartfelt thanks to Professor Yalmay Yunupiŋu for delivering this year's Narrm Oration to our university community. The Narrm Oration is the university's key address profiling leading Indigenous people from across the world. My Gutha, Professor Yunupiŋu, your story of your journey to become an outstanding bilingual educator at Yirrkala School in Arnhem Land and Senior Australian of the Year is inspiring and also profoundly significant in advocating for the preservation and celebration of Yolŋu language and culture. In a first for us at the University of Melbourne, and I think for most Australians, your oration truly is a first. You delivered in your own language, Rurajingu, noting the language of your parents that you spoke about, with English translations. This was a powerful statement about the value of your language and culture to you, your community, your students, and to future generations. Your message was not lost on us here at the university, where we have strived to have Indigenous knowledge recognised as part of the university canon, curricula, and knowledge system. I hope all of you who have heard this oration will reflect on this and also the endangerment of a majority of Australian languages and the urgent need to work with the speakers of the languages of the first Australians to ensure that they do not join the long list of already extinct languages. Australia has the highest rate of language extinction in the world. Professor Yunupiŋu, with your usual sense of optimism and compassion, you have illuminated the beauty and resilience of your knowledge system, your language, and your special style of education leadership. Your words today also illuminated the importance of education that honours identity, history, and community. You have taken us on a journey that is deeply personal, yet universal in its relevance. You have reminded us of the power of language as the vessel of culture and the heart of connection. Bilingual education, as you have so passionately articulated, is more than just teaching in two languages. It is a bridge that connects generations, strengthens cultural identity, and empowers young people to stand strong in both Yolŋu and mainstream Australian worlds. You are a trailblazer in bilingual education, and you have shown us how language is both a right and a resource. At Yirrkala School, your work ensures that young Yolŋu students are not just learning, but also thriving, deeply rooted in their heritage while equipped to navigate a rapidly changing world. You have fought tirelessly to ensure that Yolŋu Matha remains a living, breathing force in education alongside English. I salute your resilience and commitment. And all of us, I'm sure, are moved by the challenges you have faced and overcome. Your unwavering dedication to your community is a testament to the strength and wisdom of Yolŋu women. And so many of them are here tonight. And it has been a wonderful experience to have all of you visiting us again. Your oration also reminds us of the deep injustices Indigenous Australians have faced and continue to face. And you gave us a call to action to honour Indigenous languages, respect First Nations knowledge systems, and work collectively towards a future where these are celebrated, not marginalised. You reminded us of the legacy of leaders who have come before us, including your late husband, Dr. M. Yunupiŋu, and the enduring contributions of your family to education, music, culture and advocacy. Your efforts ensure that this legacy continues to grow and inspire. It was a special honour to have Wawa Witiana Marika and Yuramal Marika and other members of our family here. Our very special guests also, as I said, are the teachers and teacher trainees from the Yirrkala School and the Lanapoi Homeland School, the principals, Mirkioi Gunnabar Stubbs, Katrina Hudson and Abby White. Under the guidance of Bernadette Murphy and you and your colleagues, we developed a strong partnership with the Yirrkala School and Lanapoi Homeland Schools, delivering the pre-service teachers practicum placements for over a decade. And in the last 4 years, we have developed further programs, including, as you said, the digitisation of the Literature Production Centre. And you and the principals who are here with us tonight and your fellow teaching staff have been central to these programs. You made special mention of the teacher exchange program, Djambatj Dhukarr, or Road to Excellence, which brings Yolŋu team teachers to Melbourne schools for a week to observe how schools work on engagement strategies with students. We are proud and excited to support the work already being done by the schools with teacher education. I know that young people will emulate you throughout the Indigenous world, and I want to thank all who assisted us to enable you to deliver the Narrm Oration this evening, including Bernadette Murphy, Associate Professor Kristen Smith, Sandy Lauris, Mel Herdman and Claire Rafferty of the Jalkari Foundation, Professor Aaron Korn from the Indigenous Knowledge Institute, Karen Davis and the team in Chancellery, and especially our family members, the principals, teachers and teacher trainees. I want to thank the Northern Territory Department of Education, especially Susan Bowden and her team in Darwin, and hail their continuing support for bilingual education and their support for the 9 bilingual schools which have been so successful in educating their pupils and many to completion of grade 12 in the Northern Territory. Your voice resonates far beyond this room, Gutta, reaching anyone who believes in the transformative power of education grounded in cultural pride. I want to make a special mention of the artwork you and your granddaughter are wearing tonight. Professor Yalmay Yunupiŋu designed the artwork on her dress, worn under her robe, and supervised its reproduction onto fabric and the dress design. It is drawn from the Rirajingu clan design tradition and is obviously a Dua Moiety design. The wave pattern in blue and white represents ocean water. The cross-hatching pattern represents the formation of the land. The paler colour represents sand on the beach, and the blue, gapu or water, represents knowledge and emotions. The stars are called yatin, and they are starfish. Yatin we see floating on the surface of the water, and they get washed to the beach and come once a year. The regional colour of the yatin is blue and purplish. In the artwork they are represented in many colours to highlight them in the dress. The yatin and gapu are related to Rirajingu sacred narratives. Professor Marika Yunupiŋu's artwork was screen printed by Stuart Russell in his studio spacecraft in Footscray, Melbourne. The colours were hand-painted by Stuart and screen-printed by Danica, and the ochre colour in the background was made by using ochre from a local artist, Lisa Waup, who is a First Nations artist and curator born in Narrm. The dress itself was designed by Professor Marika Yunupiŋu and Kathy Matthews, and made by Kathy Matthews. Our granddaughter Rake is also wearing a dress made in the same material. On behalf of everyone here, I extend our deepest gratitude for your time, your insights, and your tireless commitment. We thank you for reminding us that the work of reconciliation, education, and cultural preservation is ongoing. I hope we all carry your message away from here. Every child can learn in a way that uplifts their identity and heritage. Education is not just a tool for knowledge, it is a path to justice, equality, and healing. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yunupiŋu, for sharing your vast and valuable knowledge as a cultural educator and leader in the Yolŋu community and beyond, and for your firm commitment to mentoring future Yolŋu leaders. To someone who has been heavily involved in assisting Professor Yunupiŋu in preparing for the Narrm Oration and who provided the oral translation tonight, my thanks and gratitude to Rachi Woy, Melanie Herdman. Thank you also to Uncle Bill Nicholson for your generosity in welcoming us all to Wurundjeri country. Thank you, distinguished Professor Marcia Langton, for your insightful response to the orator, Professor Yunupiŋu, and your everyday wisdom and guidance. In closing, I also want to briefly acknowledge the work of the Indigenous Knowledges Institute in bringing Indigenous knowledge systems to the forefront of our work in the DVCI portfolio and the Office of the Provost. Prior to 2023, no oration had ever been delivered in an Indigenous language. As noted in my introduction, this year's oration is historic because this oration was delivered in an Australian language for the very first time. The work of the IKI to demonstrate how Indigenous knowledge systems can inform our education and research practices and agendas within the Western academic endeavour is a critical component of Murrumuk-Djering, the Indigenous strategy of the University of Melbourne. Through this strategy, the University of Melbourne has made a commitment that Indigenous knowledges play a role in situating our brand as an Australian-based world-class institution where genuine and mutually beneficial partnerships with Indigenous peoples provide a point of access to wisdom and understanding that is globally unique in terms of its ancient continuity. But this knowledge also has practical usage and needs to and should be applied to the many and varied contemporary problems and issues that confront Australian society and global humanity. Finally, I want to acknowledge two important people to this project. Humbly and respectfully, the late Professor Goombala and the example and influence he had at this university. Without his work, tonight's oration may not have occurred at all. Similarly, I would also like to acknowledge the commitment to Indigenous knowledges that Professor Duncan Maskell has made during his term as Vice-Chancellor, including, of course, the establishment of the IKI. On behalf of the Indigenous leadership of the University, thank you, Duncan. That concludes the evening, and I thank all of you for your attendance. Please stand and remain standing for the departure of the academic procession.
Bagana, bagana.